On the 10th of April, 1829, William Booth was born in this small house in Nottingham, England. The house, which is still standing, is one of a row of terraced dwellings known as Nottington Place. This street was on the outskirts of the city in William Booth's young days. But now, Nottingham has spread out and engulfed the nearby fields. In this Wesleyan Methodist chapel, at the age of 15, he was converted to that life which, in the service of God, was to lead to the founding of the Salvation Army. It was in this room, beneath the chapel, that William Booth knelt at a table and prayed. He afterwards said, "I wanted to be right with God. I wanted to be right in myself. I wanted a life spent in putting other people right." Today, a plaque is set in the floor to mark this spot. In 1852, William Booth was ordained as a minister in the Methodist New Connection. This portrait was presented to him by his friends in appreciation of his arduous work in Sheffield and elsewhere. It was during his period as a Methodist minister that he married Catherine Mumford, who became his beloved wife and never-failing helper. She was afterwards to become known as the Mother of the Salvation Army. But the Reverend William Booth's continued emphasis on evangelical work, which he insisted in putting before all else, conflicted with the views of the majority of the members of the Methodist New Connection. At the conference in 1861, limitations were placed upon his freedom which he felt he could not accept. But it was Mrs. Booth who dramatically clinched matters. Leaping to her feet in the gallery, she cried, "Never." William Booth responded immediately, for she had echoed his own thoughts, and heedless of the cries of order, they both left the conference. After 7 years' devoted service, William Booth had resigned to retain his freedom of action. A series of events followed which ultimately led to his going to London. One evening, as he was passing the Blind Beggar public house on Mile End Waste, he saw a group of gospel missioners concluding a meeting. Their leader asked if any bystander would like to have a word, and William Booth accepted. He addressed the meeting, and so profound was the impression he made upon the crowd that he was invited to take temporary charge of the mission. He accepted the invitation. Meetings were held in a tent in a Quaker burial ground off Whitechapel, in those days an extremely rough quarter of London. Some 200 or 300 unkempt, odorous, poorly clad people belonging to the lost land of the East End would gather here. William Booth's commanding figure and forceful words immediately challenged attention, and godless, heedless crowds packed the tent despite the fact that roughs slashed it with knives and on more than one occasion cut the guy ropes, bringing it down upon those within. But winter came, cold, chilly winds blew in through rents in the tent onto the people, and the congregation declined. Other meeting places had to be found. Meetings were held in theaters on Sunday nights, and various other buildings were used as a temporary expedient. In 1864 came the turning point in the mission's history. A beer shop known as the Eastern Star was acquired and converted into permanent headquarters. This picture from the cover of the Report of the Christian Mission in 1867 shows this building after the conversion. It provides also the first evidence of the use of flags. The flag flying over the building may be said to be the forerunner of the flags used in the Salvation Army today. A notice on the front of the building throws interesting light on the activities of William Booth at this time. He was, by now, General Superintendent of the mission. Inside, a large room built for an American bowling saloon seated 300 people and was crowded to the doors every evening of the week. By 1869, the mission had a number of branches, but it still had no central hall. A building known as the People's Market had recently been erected on the Whitechapel Road, where cheap provisions of all kinds were sold. The venture was not successful, and William Booth appealed for funds to purchase the property and turn it into a mission hall. In due course, this was done. The shop at the front was operated as a soup kitchen. It was characteristic of William Booth that he insisted on a wooden floor for the mission hall instead of an asphalt one, saying, "Poor people feel the cold quite as much, if not more, than do the rich people. No one gets a blessing if they have cold feet, and nobody ever got saved while they had toothache." It was unfortunate that William Booth was prevented from conducting the opening service through illness, but Mrs. Booth preached instead. Summing up the advantages provided by the new premises, William Booth wrote, "They form the best adapted pile of buildings for evangelistic work in the three kingdoms. Oh, may we have grace to use them for good to the very uttermost. Meanwhile, the family life of William and Catherine Booth was proceeding. Here we see them in the year 1862 with 5 of their children. Standing between father and mother is Bramwell Booth, later to become the 2nd General of the Salvation Army. The Christian mission grew steadily, as this picture of the members of the conference in 1877 suggests. By now, the stations numbered 36, and the work had spread to many centres outside London. In the centre of the group is William Booth. In the year 1878, what appeared to be a small incident developed into a momentous happening. The front page of the printer's proof of the mission's 1878 report and appeal bore the words, "The Christian mission, under the superintendence of the Reverend William Booth, is a volunteer army." William Booth was studying the proof in his bedroom with Bramwell and Railton. Bramwell, on seeing the phrase volunteer army, said, "Here, I'm no volunteer, I'm a regular or nothing." At this, William Booth looked at his son, took up his pen and struck out the word volunteer. For it, he substituted salvation. This was the first appearance of the description Salvation Army. Out of that conference, and by the hand of William Booth, came the inspiration which gave the organization a striking name, wholly descriptive of its purpose and character, the appropriateness of which has never been questioned.